Today, we'll expose the 6 phrases women use during fights to gaslight men, reveal how each one specifically manipulates your emotions and shifts blame away from her actions, and show you how to respond in ways that maintain your grip on reality and refuse to accept manufactured confusion as a substitute for accountability and honest conversation. Before we get started, hit subscribe, smash that like button, and absolutely hit the hype by commenting below if you've ever walked away from a fight feeling confused, guilty, or questioning your own sanity, even when you were completely right about your concerns. What you felt wasn't weakness or oversensitivity, it was gaslighting, and recognizing it is the first step to protecting yourself from it. Phrase 1. You're overreacting. When she dismisses your legitimate concerns or emotional responses with this phrase, she's not making an observation about the proportionality of your reaction. She's attempting to make you feel like your feelings are fundamentally irrational, exaggerated, or invalid. Instead of addressing the actual concern you raised, she's attacking and discrediting your emotional response to the situation, shifting the entire conversation from "what you did that upset me" to "why you're too emotional and dramatic." This phrase means she's attempting reality minimization, making your valid concerns seem overblown, so she doesn't have to address them substantively. By labeling you as too emotional, too dramatic, or too sensitive, she accomplishes multiple manipulative objectives simultaneously. She invalidates your feelings without having to engage with why you have those feelings. She makes you feel embarrassed or ashamed for speaking up about concerns. And she establishes herself as the rational, calm person while positioning you as the unreasonable, overly emotional one. Gaslighters understand intuitively that if they can make you doubt the validity or appropriateness of your feelings, they don't have to address the issue that generated those feelings in the first place. If your concern was legitimate, but she can convince you that your emotional response to that legitimate concern was excessive, you'll apologize for your reaction rather than her apologizing for or addressing the behavior that caused your reaction. The focus shifts entirely from her actions to your supposedly inappropriate response to her actions. The female psychology driving this manipulation involves deflection and shame weaponization. Rather than taking accountability for behavior that upset you, she makes your upset the problem. She's essentially arguing that the issue isn't what she did, but how you reacted to what she did. This puts you in a defensive position where you're justifying your feelings rather than her explaining her actions. Once you're defending your right to have feelings, she's won the argument by completely changing what the argument is about. Watch for signs you're being manipulated by this phrase. You start genuinely questioning whether your concern was even legitimate, replaying the situation in your head, wondering if maybe you did overreact. You feel embarrassed for speaking up about something that bothered you, as if having concerns or feelings is something to be ashamed of. The original issue that prompted the conversation gets completely buried under endless defending of whether your reaction was proportional, while her behavior never gets addressed at all. The healthy response maintains boundaries and refuses the reframe. Stay calm and bring the conversation back to facts rather than feelings. Whether you think my reaction was proportional or not, something happened that concerned me. Let's talk about what happened, not about how I responded to what happened. This response refuses to accept that your emotional response is the problem and redirects focus back to the behavior that generated the emotional response in the first place. Phrase 2. That never happened. This is perhaps the most classic and recognizable gaslighting phrase in existence. She's not just denying a specific detail or interpretation of an event. She's attempting to completely erase something that definitely happened, to rewrite history itself, to make you question your own memory and perception of events you clearly remember experiencing. This is memory rewriting at its most blatant, and it's one of the most psychologically damaging manipulation tactics, because it attacks your fundamental trust in your own cognitive functioning. When confronted with uncomfortable truths, proven lies, or behavior she can't easily defend, gaslighters often attempt to simply erase the event entirely from accepted reality. This creates profound cognitive dissonance in you because you have clear memory of something happening, yet someone you presumably trust is telling you with apparent confidence that your clear memory is completely false. This dissonance is deeply destabilizing, making you doubt your own mind, your own perceptions, your own reliability as a witness to your own life. Once you begin questioning your recollection of events, once she creates enough doubt that you're not certain anymore whether something you clearly remember actually happened, she gains complete control of the narrative. If you can't trust your own memory, you have to rely on her version of events. She becomes the arbiter of reality in the relationship because you've lost confidence in your own ability to accurately perceive and remember what occurs. The psychology at work involves reality destabilization. By flatly denying undeniable events, she's not just lying about specifics, she's attacking your confidence in your own cognitive functioning. If she can make you doubt your memory on one thing, you'll start doubting your memory on everything. This creates dependency on her version of reality because you can't trust your own, which gives her enormous power to reshape events, deny behaviors, and avoid accountability indefinitely. Notice the signs you're being manipulated through memory denial. You begin genuinely second-guessing your memory of clear events, replaying them obsessively, trying to figure out if you're remembering correctly. You feel like you're losing track of what's real versus what you imagined or misremembered. The argument shifts entirely from her actions that you remember clearly to meta-arguments about whether those actions even occurred, which prevents any accountability for the actions themselves. The effective response maintains confidence in your own memory and perception. Keep calm and stick to facts. I remember this clearly, and denying it doesn't change what actually happened. I'm not going to doubt my own memory of something I directly experienced. If possible, reference any evidence that corroborates your memory. Texts, witnesses, physical evidence. But even without external evidence, trust your own clear recollection and refuse to let confident denial make you doubt direct personal experience. Phrase 3. You're just insecure. This phrase is specifically designed to make you the problem rather than her behavior being the problem. Instead of discussing or addressing what she did that concerned you, the entire focus suddenly shifts to your supposed psychological issues, your insecurity, your jealousy, your trust issues, your emotional problems. She's performing what's called an emotional flip, taking valid concern and reframing it as evidence of your personal deficiencies. By framing your legitimate concern as stemming from insecurity rather than from her actual concerning behavior, she accomplishes several manipulative goals at once. She completely invalidates your concern without addressing it. She makes you feel ashamed for having brought it up, as if expressing concern is itself evidence of character flaws. She establishes a chilling effect on future conversations because you won't want to risk being labeled insecure again. And she positions herself as the victim of your supposedly baseless suspicion rather than as someone whose behavior warranted questions. This manipulation is particularly powerful because it exploits most people's desire to see themselves as confident, secure, emotionally healthy individuals. No one wants to be insecure or to appear insecure. So when she labels your concerns as insecurity, you're motivated to prove you're not insecure by dropping the concerns, by accepting her explanations without question, by not asking follow-up questions that might make you seem even more insecure. She's essentially weaponized your desire to be seen as emotionally healthy against your right to have legitimate concerns. The psychology driving this tactic involves shame, weaponization, and identity attack. She's not addressing whether your concern has merit. She's attacking your character and identity, suggesting that having the concern at all reveals psychological problems. This makes you defensive about your personality and emotional health rather than her being defensive about her behavior. Once you're defending yourself against accusations of insecurity, you've completely lost the thread of the original issue that prompted your concern. Watch for manipulation signs. You start doubting your own worth, self-esteem, or emotional health, wondering if maybe you are too insecure or jealous. The focus shifts entirely from her specific actions to your personality, character, and psychological state. You feel increasing pressure to prove you're not insecure by accepting her behavior without question, which is exactly what she wants. The original concern never gets addressed because you're too busy defending yourself against character accusations. The strong response maintains frame and refuses the character attack. This isn't about insecurity or trust issues. This is about specific behavior that concerns me, and we need to discuss that behavior, not my character. This response separates legitimate concern from psychological state, refusing to accept that having concerns equals having problems, and redirecting to the actual issue that needs addressing. Phrase 4. If you really loved me, you'd trust me. She's weaponizing your love against you, using the depth of your feelings to manipulate you into silence. Instead of answering legitimate questions or addressing reasonable concerns, she implies that your doubt itself is the real betrayal, that your questions reveal inadequate love, that if you truly cared about her, you wouldn't have concerns. This is guilt anchoring, using your emotional connection to prevent accountability. This phrase manipulates your emotional core by creating a false equivalence between love and blind trust. She's suggesting that love means accepting everything without question, that expressing concern equals lack of love, that if your feelings were genuine, you wouldn't need reassurance or answers. This puts you in an impossible position: either suppress legitimate concerns to prove your love, or maintain your concerns and face accusations of not loving her enough. Gaslighters understand that love makes people more willing to question and suppress themselves. By tying trust to love explicitly, she's pushing you to ignore red flags, dismiss concerns, and accept unacceptable behavior, all to prove your emotional commitment. You end up prioritizing avoiding accusations of insufficient love over protecting yourself from behavior that legitimately warrants concern and investigation. The psychology involves emotional blackmail and loyalty testing. She's essentially arguing that loyalty means blind faith, regardless of behavior, that love means surrendering your right to have concerns. This creates a dynamic where you're constantly proving your love through increasing tolerance of problematic behavior, while she never has to prove her trustworthiness through actual trustworthy behavior. The burden is entirely on you to demonstrate feelings through unquestioning acceptance. Notice the manipulation patterns. You feel overwhelming guilt for even questioning her, as if having concerns equals betrayal. You suppress legitimate concerns to avoid upsetting her or proving insufficient love. You start associating normal, healthy suspicion about concerning behavior with disloyalty, making you progressively easier to deceive because you won't investigate or question anything for fear of being labeled disloyal. The effective response reframes love and trust appropriately. Love isn't blind trust. Love is honesty, respect, and being able to discuss concerns openly. Honesty means we talk about what's bothering us and address it together, not that I suppress concerns to prove my feelings. This response establishes that love and accountability coexist, that expressing concerns doesn't contradict love, and that true love involves honest communication about issues, not silence about them. Phrase 5. You always do this. This phrase turns a single, specific, valid concern you're raising into a supposed pattern of problematic behavior that you're responsible for. Suddenly, instead of focusing on her specific action or behavior that prompted your concern, You're defending your entire character against accusations of being consistently dramatic, jealous, controlling, or unreasonable. She's performing pattern accusation, weaponizing the concept of patterns against you. This tactic overwhelms you with guilt by suggesting that your concern isn't just wrong in this instance, but is part of a problematic pattern of behavior that you always engage in. By accusing you of always being dramatic, always being jealous, always being controlling, she reframes the entire argument so that you're the recurring problem that needs fixing, not her behavior that prompted your concern. The focus shifts from addressing one situation to defending your overall character. This is particularly insidious because it takes what might be legitimate pattern observation and weaponizes it as manipulation. Sometimes people do have recurring problematic patterns that need addressing. But when this phrase appears specifically when you're raising legitimate concerns about her behavior, when it consistently serves to deflect from accountability for specific actions, it's not sincere pattern recognition. It's manipulative deflection disguised as pattern observation. The psychology involves guilt multiplication and frame shifting. Instead of feeling concerned about one specific thing she did, you now feel guilty about supposedly being a problematic person who always engages in unreasonable behavior. Instead of her defending or explaining one action, you're defending your entire history of expressing concerns. She's made it about your character patterns rather than her behavioral specifics, which is a vastly more defensible position for her. Watch for manipulation signs. You switch immediately from explaining the specific issue to defending yourself against accusations of being consistently problematic. The focus moves instantly from the present situation to your supposed past pattern of similar behavior. You feel like you're the one who needs to apologize for having a pattern of concerns rather than her apologizing for the pattern of behavior that generates those concerns. The original issue disappears entirely beneath arguments about your alleged patterns. The grounded response maintains focus on the present issue. I'm talking about this specific situation right now, not about past incidents or supposed patterns. Let's stay on the actual topic we're discussing, not about other times I've had concerns. This refuses to accept the deflection to pattern discussions and insists on addressing the immediate issue that prompted the conversation. If there are genuine patterns to discuss, they can be discussed separately, not as a deflection from present accountability. Phrase 6. You're crazy. This is the ultimate attempt to completely destroy your credibility, both in your own mind and potentially in the minds of others, if the argument is witnessed or discussed. If she can convince you or other people that you're fundamentally irrational, mentally unstable, or crazy, then nothing you say will matter. Your perceptions become inherently unreliable, and your concerns can be dismissed without examination because they're coming from someone who's crazy. Labeling someone as crazy is a classic and extremely damaging power move. It isolates you completely from your own perception of reality because it suggests that your perceptions themselves are unreliable due to your supposed mental instability. Once you doubt your own sanity, once you accept the possibility that maybe you are crazy, she controls the story completely. Your reality becomes whatever she tells you it is because you can't trust your own perception of reality. This phrase is particularly damaging because it doesn't just attack your interpretation of events or your memory of specifics. It attacks your fundamental cognitive functioning and mental health. It suggests that your concerns stem not from legitimate observations of problematic behavior, but from your own mental illness or instability. This is an attack on your essential credibility as a perceiver of reality. The psychology involves credibility destruction and reality seizure. By labeling you crazy, she's attempting to establish that your version of events is inherently unreliable regardless of evidence, logic, or consistency. This means she never has to actually address or refute your concerns substantively. She just has to maintain that you're too unstable to trust and therefore, everything you say can be dismissed out of hand without examination. Notice the manipulation patterns. You begin questioning your own judgment, memory, and perception, wondering if maybe you are seeing things that aren't there, or interpreting things incorrectly due to mental health issues. You feel like you have to prove your sanity, to demonstrate you're thinking clearly, which puts you in an impossible defensive position. The conversation ends completely without resolving the real issue, because once the crazy label is applied, no actual discussion of the issue can occur since your perceptions are supposedly unreliable. The firm response maintains reality and refuses the crazy label. I'm not crazy, and calling me crazy doesn't address the real questions I'm asking about real behavior that actually happened. I'm raising legitimate concerns about things I directly observed or experienced. This response refuses to defend against the crazy label, which would be impossible to win, and instead insists on returning to the substantive issues and actual behaviors that prompted the conversation. Remember, in healthy relationships, concerns get addressed, not deflected. Questions get answered, not attacked. Memory gets acknowledged, not denied. Your right to have feelings and raise concerns doesn't disappear just because someone calls you oversensitive, insecure, unloving, or crazy. Trust your perceptions, maintain confidence in your memory, and refuse to accept manufactured confusion as a substitute for honest accountability and genuine conversation about legitimate concerns.